Okay, welcome to this module. Today we're going to be talking about fear of the past and how that fear, whether it's conscious or unconscious, can be limiting you. How does it limit you? It blocks access to even the awareness that there's infinite possibilities in front of you. So fear of the past, conscious or unconscious, is blocking you from accessing the infinite possibilities that are in front of you. Now, side note, I'm just going to give you a crash course on this infinite possibilities that I speak of, because I think sometimes this is nuanced and people get lost in the idea that there's infinite possibilities in this moment. While it is true that there is, I also think it's really important to remember that you want to come back to this now moment. And while the infinite possibilities are out there, maybe from where you're standing, there's 5 possibilities. And you usually can only see maybe some of them. Let's say you can only see A and B. And you're focusing, do I do A or B, A or B? And there's actually C, D, and E. So there's more possibilities than you can even see in that moment. And then when you go through one of those doors, maybe there's 10 possibilities that have now opened because you said yes to something new, or because you said yes to a new way, or because you went through a different door that was breaking perhaps a pattern that you were repeating in your story. So if you're repeating the pattern, it's like, I always go through door A, always A, always A, always A. Why is life always happening to me this way? It's just like, because you're just only seeing A as the door, A or B. And so the pattern is repeating itself. So you continually show up for that until you learn the lesson, until you integrate what it is you came here to integrate, until that soul curriculum piece has been integrated. And so when we talk about infinite possibilities, people can be like, well, there's only a few things that I can see in this moment. And it's like, yes, and there's probably a few more. And then when you go through that door, it's like, then there's 10 on the other side of that, and then 20 on the other side of that, and then 50, 60, 90, a million. And that's where the infinite possibilities reside. It's possible to quantum leap into some incredible possibility that you couldn't even imagine. But we always want to come back to where we are now, and what are our options here, and what am I not seeing here? And maybe there's a handful of options, maybe there's 10, maybe there's 20, but it can be a little overwhelming to our systems when we're like, this infinite possibility, like, why can't the biggest thing happen right now? Because sometimes we need to move through a couple more layers of decision making. We need to engage our willpower in a different way to access what's on the other side of a few other doors until that really big possibility comes. And it's not that you need to pay your dues. It's not that you need to sacrifice and suffer until the bigger thing can come. It's just that people get really locked in on wanting this thing that's so big and over here, and it's totally a possibility, but they're not willing to take the few steps that will align them to that, to use their willpower in a different way that will align them with that infinite possibility, that one different possibility that's over here. It's not enough to just like vision it without executing. And sometimes the execution comes from, well, it always comes from this now moment and the choices that you have here. So it's like, oh, I want to be the healthiest version of myself, but in the day-to-day decision-making process, I'm not willing to give up sugar. I just want that to happen. Or I'm not willing to like not binge drink on the weekends, but I still want all that. And it's like, you're not making the choice point from here. Okay, so side little teaching on how I envision and work with the infinite possibilities, and how we can kind of focus it and narrow it down to this present moment. And so what we want to talk about today is that how we can explore patterns of the past and start to make different decisions so that those patterns don't continually repeat themselves, and so that you don't always just have option A or B as your doorways, and that you start to open up yourself to C, D, E, F, G, and then you walk through one of those, and then on the other side of it, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know it could be this way, because I was only working from my limited perspective. I was only working from this pattern that I've identified. Okay, so when we start to heal the fear of the past, we're able to move forward in life in a different way. And when we are afraid of the past, we are and afraid of it repeating itself, we're essentially saying that we're afraid of the future. We're starting to, well, one, create the future based on fear. We're experiencing the present moment and the future based on fear. And we're not leaning into the possibility that things could be different because we're so afraid of the past. So the reason that it's really important to start working with this consciously is because until you do, you're going to be unconsciously repeating patterns from the past. So it can be a really beautiful practice to just have a page in your journal to start noting patterns that you see yourself playing out, and be super honest with yourself. Like, if you're here to actually have change, actually experience transformation, you need to be willing to look at the shadow, be willing to look at the sticky with no judgment. We don't want to judge ourselves for the past. And that will not be, if we're judging ourselves, we're not going to be able to move through it in a really careful way, filled with care. It's like, wow, if I believe that I make perfect sense, or I can understand that, like, Joanna's telling me that I make perfect sense, even though I don't understand it. These patterns that I've been playing out come from somewhere. So I want to get really curious about where they come from so I can understand myself with more depth. And when I can meet myself with that care and compassion and curiosity, I actually create a container that allows the story that maybe has been hidden, to surface, and that I can actually see it for what it is. And in those moments, that's when you're like, oh my gosh, all my behaviors are coming from this deep-seated belief that I've just continually been playing out over and over and over again and repeating patterns from the past. Okay, so here we're all about exploring the patterns of the past so that we can take the blessings of the learning, whatever, the blessings from the past, even if they don't feel like a favorable experience, we take the blessings from the past, break the pattern, and create something that is in greater alignment and better integrity with self, your authentic self, and where you want to go, your soul path, your soul curriculum, whatever you want to call it, your highest version of yourself. So we break the patterns of the past by becoming aware of them so that we can take that energy and put it towards something that's in deeper alignment for ourselves. And so the first place we start is just take a page in your journal and start to notice the patterns. No pattern is too small to even just write down. It doesn't mean you need to shift every single pattern, and not every pattern necessarily harms you. And some patterns are connected to other patterns. So once you start to heal one, it's amazing the ripple effect that this will have on other ways that you show up in life. So let's say you have a list of 50 patterns you want to break. It might actually really only require the shifting of a few of them. That alchemizes, the alchemical process of this actually starts to shift the other things. So please don't get discouraged when you start to notice all these ways that you show up. They could be stemming from the same root. The same root would be the reason for some of these different action points. So, number one, start making a page in your journal just to notice these patterns. It could be as simple as, like, every time I'm finished bedtime with my toddler, because it's kind of stressful, I have to come downstairs and eat chocolate, or I have to come downstairs and I pour myself a drink. Every time I have a conflict with somebody, I notice myself needing to disassociate for a little bit. Like, whatever it is, just start to judgment-free write them down so you have a bit of an inventory. So I see a lot of people feeling stuck in their lives because they're so afraid that things aren't going to go differently. They're just stuck because they can't figure out how to get out. And this is going to sound potentially a little bit insensitive, but hear me higher here. Sometimes it's because there isn't a willingness to make a different choice. Sometimes we're stuck because we're not willing to make a different choice. But if you can see the stuckness as part of the journey and part of the gift, you don't have to like being stuck, Please understand when I say gift, it's not to bypass any of this stuff. It's that the part that loves you so much, that desires things to be different, the part that loves you so much, that yearns for the transformation to happen for you, has brought you to a place where you feel stuck so that you can no longer carry on and continue to repeat patterns of the past. The part of you that loves you so much has brought you here to this stuck place. And when we get there, the fear is it'll never change. Nothing will change. But you've been brought to a place of stuckness because now you can't continue down the old path. It's like, it doesn't work. I cannot do it for another day. I cannot show up in this way anymore. And so in that stuckness, the ingredients are present for change. This stuckness contains the ingredients that you need in order to change something. You don't necessarily need to have the whole map. Maybe it's changing something small. Maybe it's changing something big. Maybe it's just asking for help. Maybe it is just surrendering to the fact that what you're doing isn't working. Because so many times we carry on down the path that isn't working with then more stress or more force, like it's got to work, it's going to work, it's got to work, it's got to work. And we continually push and push and push. And sometimes we get to a place of stuckness so we can actually just surrender in to the concept, to the knowing, the gnosis, the internal knowing that this isn't working anymore. And in there, we get to perhaps find a new way, seed a new pattern. So this leads me to just taking like a tiny bit of time to talk about like sacred geometry and fractal experiences or fractal humans. The universe, like spirit, God, whatever language you want to use to it, the geometry of the universe is bringing you exactly what you need in order to evolve. How do I want to say this? The code that is in the seed that is you has an evolution, a natural evolution. And everything that that seed needs to become its full expression, it's going to be met by the universe. And the problem is that we continually think that everything I need is given to me. And what I think I need is like the easy path. And it's not always the case. We need to be able to surrender our preferences sometimes, to surrender our preferences so that we can actually show up for what we need. So know that everything that the seed within you needs is getting delivered to it. And sometimes it's here to learn a lesson, to integrate something, and when I say learn a lesson, I actually mean tapping into a deeper layer of your own power, of your own strength, of your own resiliency, of your own gifts, of your own magic, of your own precious nature. Those are the lessons we're learning. And so the patterns that are coming to you are perfectly orchestrated for you to meet them and to alchemize them. And if you go through an experience and don't gain what was there for you, don't remember your wholeness, your worthiness, let's say, in that experience, then another one's going to come and say, no problem, we'll do this again. No problem, we'll do this again. No problem, we'll do this again. There is no problem here. We're going to keep bringing you the lessons until you remember, until you remember. And so if we can just understand that everything that is coming to us, even if it's really painful, is what we need, and then we get to use our free will in those experiences to meet them in a different way. So if we don't like the way that it continually plays out, we're going to have to use our willpower to show up in a different way. So know that when I talk about the fractal experiences and the fractal people, community and relationships are a really big part of this healing journey, are a really big part of locating more courage in our lives, because when we're surrounded by the right people, life doesn't feel as scary. And we also get to locate deeper layers of our own power, magic, gifts, because they're being reflected back to us in a different way by different people. And then when you're having that reflected back to you, you can locate so much more courage. You can walk with so much more fear because you understand that there is so much support around you. But for some of us, relationship, community, those experiences haven't been a nourishing thing for us. So there's a lot of things, patterns from the past that can be connected to relationship. That relationship is painful, love is confusing. And just know that if that's one of the stories that you're facing and fear around that pattern repeating itself, there is an infinite possibility of different relationships, like romantic or friendship or business, whatever they are. There is such a different way. And how can I speak to this with such knowing? Because I've experienced it. I know this to be true because I've experienced it. When I started to heal and work with my own sense of self and the way that I was perceiving and experiencing myself, I started to meet people that reflected that back to me. And that became a different type of community for me. So even if you can't fully understand it, and even if there's part of you that's skeptical, but there's another part of you that's like, that sounds pretty fucking awesome. Can you allow that part of you that thinks it's awesome to just tether to my story? We can create healthy tethers. Tether to the truth that I'm speaking from my own experience and know that it is possible for you. But we just have to hold the belief that it's possible. Even if I can't fully see it, can I hold on to the belief that something different is possible? I choose to know and believe that even though I can't see it, I'm willing to be open to the fact that things could be different. If that's as much of the mantra as you can start with, like start with locate the truth for you and start there. Don't try to bypass it with, a mantra that doesn't resonate at all or feels too disconnected from where you're at. I'm willing and able to explore the idea that things could be different for me. So just know that, just to circle back to this sacred geometry piece and kind of tie this up in a bow for you, is that everything is coming towards you for a reason. And how much of those choices, how much are you being a choice maker in that? And this is nothing easy to look at. It requires radical responsibility, radical courage to look at these pieces. And it's like, I'm always finding myself in these situations where I have to caretake everybody because I see that as how I'm valuable. And that's my only perception of my worth. So I continually put myself in places where I have to caretake so I'm valuable because I don't believe I'm valuable for something else. And when we start to identify that pattern that we might have in relationships or experiences, the awareness is the entry point, and we get to we get to begin to seed a different way of being. So know that everything's being delivered to help evolve you, and that in that, it doesn't mean that your preferences are always going to be met. How do I know that? Because I've lived it. I'm like, what is this? Like, how could this possibly be for me? Because it's so painful. How did I deserve this? And then the victim starts to come in, and we start to lose our personal power and our remembering of choice, that we can make choices. I will say, nuance upon nuance upon nuance, but I also want you to know that I truly understand. I truly, truly understand that sometimes it's almost near impossible to make different choices because we don't think that we can even survive it. The nervous system isn't on board, and it's almost impossible to make a different choice in certain situations, which is why I'm so passionate about nervous system healing. It's why I do what I do. It's why I work intimately and in depth with people one-on-one, because it's not always enough to just hear that there's a different choice to be made. There's sometimes actually like nervous system stuff that really needs to be resolved before you can truly follow through on that action. And know that if you come up against some of those things, that I'm here to support you. There's probably people in your area or wherever you are. There might be people you already know that can support you. But sometimes when we come up against things, we can't always resolve them by ourselves. And I truly understand that. And this experience, this course, is here to bring you insights, is here to support you with unearthing some of this material and giving you some really good clues as to how to move in different ways, giving you some practices to practice and support yourself. And then know that sometimes stuff will come up that it's just not possible to sit in it alone and resolve it. And when you meet that, to seek help if you're ready to alchemize it, because it is possible to shift it. You don't have to live with the stories and the patterns forever. Okay, so I just want you to know that I understand that sometimes it's not easy to just make different choices. I'm not bypassing here. I'm not saying just make choices and everything will be different. But there are definitely places where we can show up for ourselves in bigger ways than we have been, where we can stop handing our power away to the past and the stories that have happened in the past. We can take it back. We can start to come into the present moment to see that there actually might be this other path that I haven't considered, and I'm willing to try it to see what happens. And in that different choice, you open yourself up to a whole cascade of possibilities, which is where the infinite possibilities reside. That one choice unlocks a whole other layer. Every Friday, I do this thing. It doesn't really light me up, but I've been doing it for years, so I'll just keep doing it. Where can we bring our will into this? It's not serving me. I'm going to choose differently. And it's really uncomfortable to choose differently. It's really uncomfortable to say no or stay home or go to something new or try something different. But in that discomfort of something new, you have just unlocked a whole new pathway of possibilities for yourself. But the reason that we want to be really careful, the reason we want to be really aware and bring consciousness to these pattern interrupts and reframing is because sometimes it's not enough to just like cut off the pattern without understanding why do I do the thing. Because if you just get rid of it, we push it down into the shadow. You push a part of yourself that was protecting you or doing something for some reason down into the shadow. And then you're going to truck along just being like, no, 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 don't come up, don't come up, don't come up. And we're really trying to suppress, depress part of ourselves that actually wanted to be met. So the pattern almost must run like a completed cycle in order to move onwards and upwards. So this is where completing or integrating it versus letting go of it can be just a really nice language tweak to pay attention to, especially when you're working with this. Letting go is a great thing. Letting go is fantastic. But sometimes we want to understand what we're letting go to. Why? So that we can have a proper burial of the thing. So with reverence, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm letting go of this part of me, or I'm letting go of this behavior because this part of me that didn't feel like she was worthy enough was behaving in that way. But now that I've loved and integrated the part of me that doesn't feel that they're worthy, so I've reclaimed that part of me and integrated her and showed her a different way, I can let go of the behavior, but not the part of me, because she still needs protecting and she still needs to be tended to, and she can be tended to in really beautiful ways. So just a little nuance around language. It's not that we're just like walking around snipping chords with all these parts of ourselves, and then we fractionated from pieces that carry a huge amount of wisdom and reverence and life experience. Okay. All right, let me just check my notes here. Yeah, we want to find the pattern interrupt and be the pattern interrupt. And so know that this can also, this can be something that plays out in your own life through your own life experiences, but this can also be like a generational thing. This can also be a generational pattern that you have been exposed to, whether it's through like witnessing your lineage or also somatically through carrying the codes of your lineage. But it's like, if you have a story that every time A happens, then B happens, then C happens, and then somewhere along the way, it's like, then G happens. So you have all these markers, and it's like, if this, then this, then this, then this. And what happens if G is like, and then this terrible thing happens? So every time you're experiencing A, you think, your system thinks that G is going to happen, because maybe that's something that's happened in your lineage. Your ancestral lineage has run this story, has run this pattern. And so this is why when I say locate the pattern so that you can be the pattern interrupt, it's like, okay, if A, then B, then C, what if it's not G? What if it's P, which is where everything gets to be good, or it actually works out for me in my favor, that I'm not abandoned or harmed or forgotten or whatever the thing is. So this actual like code of A, B, C, then G is what the nervous system knows. And the nervous system's like, yikes, this is what's running. So when we're the pattern interrupt, we get to come into this mathematical equation and insert a new energy. And it's like, oh, wait, P could be a possibility. And then as soon as you hold P as a possibility, you're orienting energy towards it. You're shifting the creative powers of, like, literally creation is putting energy into something with intention and your will. But if we don't make the pattern conscious, you'll never know. You'll just think it's who you are. You'll just think it's the way it is. This is why we have to bring consciousness to it, our awareness to it. This is why working in mentorship space can be so incredible, because let's say you've identified like 10 of your core patterns, but sometimes there's one so deep that you aren't present to them, and it's really hard to find that in yourself. But when an objective observer who knows you deeply, knows how to look at the clues, knows your the rhythm of you, can actually see a different pattern and can help you highlight it too. So having trusted sources, whether it's like mentorship, whether it's a therapist, whether it's like a really trusted friend or source or counsel, can be really beautiful in the pattern recognition. But it's not enough to just recognize the pattern. We need to interrupt it. And sometimes it can be a lot of work to bring new energy into something, to create a new pattern, to break a habit, so to speak. It requires willpower. There's so many things I've identified in my life along the way where I knew that something wasn't serving me, yet I still showed up and did the thing that didn't serve me. And I had as much grace as I could possibly muster in that moment, in that season, for just being aware, okay, it's not serving me. Why can't I break this pattern? It's not serving me. Why do I still do these things? But the awareness was the entry point. So how much compassion can you bring to yourself as you're navigating this? Because without the awareness, we can't make the change. So the awareness is the entry point. And then sometimes it takes a little bit of time to build up the energy to be able to interrupt the pattern. So be the pattern interrupt. When you've identified the pattern, you want to be the interrupt. But first, you might just have to hold space for the fact that you've recognized the pattern. And then it's even more confronting, because you can't even believe that you weren't aware of the pattern, or you sometimes just have to sit in the discomfort of knowing that you're doing something that doesn't serve you and you're still choosing it, and you're not actually ready to choose something else. And how much grace can you give yourself while you're sitting in the discomfort of like, I'm actually choosing something that doesn't serve me, and I know that I'm choosing it. And I can still love myself, even though I don't like how I'm showing up right now. I can still love myself by holding myself in this energy that change is possible, and I'll get there. And keep showing up for myself, and I will be able to change, even though I don't know how, even though I don't know how I'm going to muster the courage or find what I need to be found or find that missing piece to help me. I'm holding the belief that if I stay present with this long enough, if I get stuck for long enough, the ingredients for the alchemical process will show up for me, and there will be a lifeline along the way, or all of a sudden I'll get more willpower. All of a sudden, I'll be able to shift it. And again, sometimes that happens on our own, and sometimes that happens through gaining support through different people or different modalities. So yeah, I want to just take this back to the fractal experiences as well. And it's like, until we start choosing differently, we don't really get access to the new people that should be in our lives, the new experiences that should be in our lives. And sometimes it means that we're going to have to become brave enough to start letting relationships dissolve or fade away. And that doesn't mean that they have to end with this big, like, you're cut out of my life and I have to tell everybody why. It's just that we actually start to follow where the energy is taking us. And sometimes it's like letting relationships fall away and sitting in the discomfort while you're waiting for that new fractal energy to show up, that new experience. But if you're so afraid to sit in that discomfort, the unknown, which is another module relating to the unknown in this way. But if you're too afraid to sit in that and then quickly choose something else that is in resonance with the fractal that you're trying to move through, you're just going to keep bringing the same experience to you. And by experience, I also mean relationships. They're a big part of it here. So when we start to bring consciousness to our patterns, we start to bring awareness to what we're choosing and what we no longer want to choose. And what is it that would feel good here instead? And even if you don't know exactly how that looks, it's like, can you hold out for the possibility that something else could happen? I can't tell you how many things have been delivered in my life that I didn't even think were possible, because it's like, oh, I'm so far down my path. This life is a life I've lived for so long. How could anything new really insert itself here? But that newness that I was desiring came from saying yes to a new experience. The newness will shift when you start making different choices. It doesn't mean you have to blow your life up and like move away or make all these huge decisions. Sometimes it's taking a course, taking a class, going for a walk. Maybe it's working in a coffee shop instead of in your house. It's just choosing something different, because if the pattern of the past will always repeat itself if you don't bring a pattern interrupt into it. So notice the patterns that are working and notice the ones that aren't. This is another layer I want to bring in too in the human design, through the human design lens, is that, how can I phrase this in a concise way? Pattern recognition in the human design circuitry comes through logic. Logic is just pattern recognition. If this, then this. If this, then this. If this, then this. And that comes from the mind. The pattern recognition comes from the mind. But we're not here to create from the mind. We're here to create through sensing and feeling and being guided as to where energy, creative energy, wants to go and how it wants to flow through us. But when the energy is coming through us in this way, there's no pattern attached to it yet, because it's newness. So there's no story, there's no history, there's no pattern. Something new is wanting to be birthed, and it comes up through the root and through our system. And so if you are holding on to pattern recognition logic, and trying to create through this pathway, you're trying to create from the mind. And the mind is beautiful for some things and some layers of creation, but it's not here to create from a sense of logic, because that doesn't allow newness to flow in. Because if logic is pattern recognition, and pattern recognition is coming from manifest, something that's already manifest here in the world is being experienced, therefore I can recognize the pattern. If we're trying to create from what's manifested already, we're not creating from the field of potentiality or possibility or newness. So you're limiting your creative capacity if you're trying to purely create from the mind. I can't express to you how profound, not like what I just said, but like that concept is. So I really want you to take the time to allow that to land, to listen to this as many times as you need, contemplate it. Because everything that's being created is coming from the unseen, the unmanifest into form. The formless into form is what the manifestation creation process is. And then once it's in the form, then we get to see the patterns, whether it's of things or our behavior, it's the manifest, because it's already happened. So then if you're trying to create from where it's already happened, you're limiting yourself. And this is where we're creating from past patterns, and we're not opening ourselves up to newness, to the new. So even just bringing our awareness to this, it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to necessarily be creating from the mind. Even though the mind can bring like beautiful layers in, the mind is to be in service to the creative energy that's flowing through you. It's not here to limit what is to be created. Okay. So when you start to see those patterns and heal those patterns, you not only liberate yourself from potential life stories that you've been telling yourself through your human experience, but you're also liberating lineages before you. Because if they've been operating and living out that pattern, as soon as you're the pattern interrupt, think about this. It's like all these things living in, like, let's say color brown, and there's just all these blocks along the way running that pattern. And then you liberate yourself. And that pattern, it's like this light interrupts the pattern and extends itself through the whole lineage. And you heal the past, and you heal the future. You allow the future of yourself and your lineage to have a different experience because you've brought in a different code. You've illuminated a code in a different way. So okay, let me just hold on. So you get to be the pattern interrupt. And it takes courage to be the pattern interrupt, because it's going to require you to show up in a way that you maybe never have showed up, or you haven't showed up in a long time. And so it takes courage, but you're here because you're seeking something. You're here because you're seeking a different way of experiencing life. And I'm here to tell you that it's so possible for you. But you have to be willing to be courageous enough to locate whatever you need to locate to show up in a different way. And let me tell you that sometimes it's taken me years to locate the courage to show up in a different way. I've been present to something, and it was so big and it was so scary that I couldn't actually do the thing that I wanted to do for years. But along the way, I was doing all these little things that were slowly helping me bring the courage to it. So this isn't about like, take the leap, blow your life apart, do all the things that are too stressful to the nervous system. It's simply what we're talking about now is illuminating the patterns so that you're aware of them and that you now have the possibility to interrupt that pattern. Because when we're afraid of the past, repeating itself, it's like, what's the point? My life, it's always looked like this and it's always going to look like this. You're fearing the future. You're dismissing the future and everything it holds for you. And so whatever you need to do this work, follow some of the journal prompts that I give you, some of the steps that I give you. And if this is enough for you, amazing. And if you need deeper support, find it, ask for it, because when you're fearing the past and worried that your whole life is going to look like that again, you're dismissing the future. And there is so much richness there for you, even if you can't see it yet. I can't see everything that's going to unfold in my life. And there's some stuff that feels crunchy, but I can sense that it's there. And that faith in that is what's leading me forward. I've decided to no longer only be like, of course, fear comes in, but I don't want to be like fear-based creation, because if you're afraid of the future, then all you're trying to do is avoid something. Like you're not trying to create from what's wanting to come through. You're trying to avoid something happening again. So you're just like, I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. And you're blocking a whole new experience because you're just trying to avoid something happening again. And it makes perfect sense that you would. But do you see the creation of it? We don't want it to come from fear. Fear-based creation is reactive. It's limited. It's contracted. It's not open and trusting and allowing. Because when we're also aware of the patterns and we're choosing differently, we get to trust ourselves more. It's like, oh my gosh, now I can see when I show up in that way with that pattern, and I actually get to choose differently. So I don't need to defend against the people. I actually just don't allow myself to be in the spaces where that could happen. And of course, like this is why sometimes we have to go into some like deep trauma healing, because sometimes we didn't have that choice. We couldn't remove ourselves from stuff. Lots of stuff happens to in childhood that we don't have control over, which is why we do this work, why you sit with people in really good ways. But we don't want to be creating from fear. We want to be creating from possibility and trust. And it takes some time to get there, and the pendulum may swing. You might find yourself deeply in trust and then back into fear, and just notice when the pendulum swings. We don't have to live in one way the whole time, but gradually as we start to orient towards it, the pendulum will swing less, and we just get to be in the middle way more often. So we want to create from fear. I mean, we don't want to create from fear. We want to be creating from like response and trust and allowing the possibility that a new pattern can emerge. So how in this program am I supporting you in helping to like execute that and step into that? There's a couple things that I would suggest for you. One, I'm going to drop journal prompts below. Explore those, like actually show up for yourself and actually explore them multiple times. Drop into the practices. Practices are practices because we practice them. We don't just do them one time and expect everything to shift. So how dedicated and devoted can you be for these practices? Now, another fun thing that I encourage you to do is using your imagination. Imagine another outcome, even if you don't think it's possible. And even if you don't know what that possibility is, it's like, even just start with the thing that you think is going to happen, not happening. You don't even need to know something else that could happen. It's like, every time I do this, X happens. It's like, when I do this, that doesn't happen. Start there. And then it's like, what are 3 other things that could unfold in that time? I could be given a different perspective and something could shift. Somebody, let me see if I can locate a more concrete example. Strange example coming in, but it's like every time I bake, the cake falls flat. So I can't bake. I'm not creative in the kitchen. Can you even just start with the idea that it's possible that I could bake and the cake doesn't fall flat? And just see what that could feel like. Okay, so I could take it out of the oven and it actually could have been risen. And it's like, oh yeah, but I've tried it a million times and it never happens. And it's like, okay, well, what needs to happen in order to have a different experience? Well, maybe I'll try a different recipe. Maybe I'm going to stop trying the same recipe, expecting a different result. Maybe the oven needs to be changed. Maybe somebody else needs to look at the recipe and what I'm doing, because perhaps I've been measuring in tablespoons when I needed teaspoons. And I actually just needed a perspective shift. I needed something corrected. So I've just inserted 2 things, but there's the possibility of something happening a different way. If you can locate what that is, then bring that into your imagination and use your imagination as a co-creative force to support you in just orienting to not door A or B. Remember I said we can often see like A or B, but we're not even present to C, D, E, because you don't believe they're possible for you or you can't see them. Whatever the reason is, let's just orient to like the fact that there could be a freaking door over here that's not this one. Even if it starts with, I'm willing and open to be available to seeing something in a different way. Even if I can't see what it is, I'm open to it. Help me see another option. And then when that shows up, start seeding your imagination into that. So exercise 1 is just start imagining a different outcome. so that you can start noticing that the pattern doesn't have to continue to repeat itself. Even if you don't understand how you're going to co-create and make that happen, just start bringing it into your imagination. It's your field of awareness. It's where energy is coming through and where energy is flowing. So that's step one. Number two is have an evidence journal. Every time something doesn't happen the way you think it's going to, something surprisingly happens, put it in the evidence journal so that when you forget, when the pendulum swings back into fear and you're not in trust, you can go back and look at the evidence. It's like, oh, I'm not present to it in this moment, but now I actually have an evidence journal. Delightful little miracles that show up, it doesn't need to always be the big subject matter. I went into a coffee shop today and somebody bought me a random coffee for no reason. There was a pattern that I was not expecting. There's always a pattern interrupt available. I had a really hard conversation at work and I said my piece, and it actually was received very well. Or I inserted one of my ideas into a conversation and people actually thought it was really valuable and listened to me. Maybe that's not the way things usually go. So just start creating an evidence journal for the pieces that are going to help remind you that there's usually a lot of things that we're not present to. There's a lot of possibilities that we're not present to. And if we can just orient in the present moment that like, I can't actually see how many blessings could be coming my way in this moment, but they're there. When we get to live from that place a bit more, the synchronicities do start to arrive. And this is not like woo-woo BS stuff. It truly happens. I promise you. So using your imagination to imagine a different outcome, the evidence journey, the evidence journal, because what happens in that is it's almost like the energy is always flowing down this certain river path and you're forgetting about all these little tributaries that energy could flow down. And then when the energy and the movement starts going down those tributaries, they actually become the main path. You're building new neural pathways throughout this process. Throughout Courage Codes, you're building new neural pathways simply by being here because you're exposing yourself to a different lens, a different perspective, my way of seeing the world, my way of relating to the world. And yes, it's still a perception, but you're here because there's something in it that sparks some kind of curiosity or interest or desire for you. So just know that the neural pathways are happening throughout this course. And then how can you just continue to orient them more specifically here around the past not always repeating itself? Where did things just happen in a different way than you thought they would or that you expected they would? Okay, so yeah, journal prompts, imagination, evidence journal, and definitely when you come up against something, a pattern that seems really confronting, there's times where it's really taken me out or taken my breath away. I'm like, oh my gosh, and I thought that's just like truly who I was at my core. And now I'm seeing that it's this pattern, it's this belief, and I wasn't able to navigate it myself, then I absolutely enlist support and know that that support is for you here or wherever else in life that you get it. But I definitely want you to seek that out when you need it. So in this crunchy exploration of letting go of patterns of the past, which means bringing them into our awareness field, it requires courage. I know it's crunchy. I know it's sticky. I know it because I've done it and I continue to do it. And I'm so here to support you in it. But in that, the alchemical process that happens is that you open yourself up to the whole portal that you didn't even know existed, possibilities that were beyond your imagination. Like you'll start imagining little possibilities and then that will unlock things that were not even in your field right now. Those lives of people that you see living that are like delusionally optimistic or creating from a place of like, that seems wild, but I'll hold it for myself. That's what you start to move forward to when you are willing to acknowledge the past and that you might be operating from like outdated programming. Just need a reboot and welcome in this new energy. Welcome it in. Welcome it in through these practices, through listening to these videos, through all the things I'm offering you here. This is how you welcome it in. You've so got this. I'm so here for you. And thank you for being here.